traits, and he just doesn't have those.
So Andy Dalton was a full-time starter for about 12 years in the NFL.
Yeah.
253 touchdowns, 150 interceptions. His teams had a winning record in the games he played in. And he's still in the league, by the way, in Carolina. 84 and 82 and two ties. Not going to the Hall of Fame. Not the greatest player we've ever seen. Not someone that you'd want to have with a top 5 pick in the draft. But not bad. Is that an insult to say that he's Andy Dalton?
Oh, yeah, it's shade for sure. There's no way to take it otherwise. Andy Dalton was a second-round pick, never won a playoff game. Kirk Cousins was a fourth-round pick. I think he's won one playoff game in his career, and he's been in the league 13, 14 years. Yeah, it's shade. There's no question about it in my mind. We're talking about Shedeur Sanders being a top 5 pick and potentially second overall. That's where we're at. And I push back on the notion that Shedeur doesn't have elite traits. You may not think he has elite physical talent, but Shedeur, in terms of his football acumen, elite. In terms of his accuracy, elite. In terms of his ability to be mobile inside the pocket, elite. Those things translate to being a successful NFL quarterback. Not dropping your eyes from your receivers downfield to the rush, that matters in terms of being a successful NFL quarterback. Being physically tough and rugged, that matters. This guy took a beating at Colorado, and yet last season completed 74% of his passes. That matters. So I reject the notion that he doesn't have elite traits that warrant being a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. I think he absolutely has that kind of talent. But beyond that, the most important thing, the biggest reason why I like Shedeur Sanders is because this guy is a culture changer. He did it at Jackson State. He did it at Colorado. And the spotlight in both of those situations could not be bigger because he is Deion Sanders' son.
Who's the quarterback.
Exactly. So when you start talking about bringing a guy into our franchise that I need to change the culture, somebody that I need to be mentally and physically tough, somebody who I need to spotlight not to overwhelm them, Shedeur Sanders fits the bill in every regard. While I will acknowledge that Cam Ward has a higher ceiling because of the elite physical talent, I think Shedeur Sanders between the two quarterbacks has the higher floor. And so him being a top 5 pick in the second quarterback off the board, I don't think that's too rich considering this guy is going to be an agent of change no matter where he goes.
So you reject the Andy Dalton, Kirk Cousins comp?
Absolutely.
You think that he has more potential than that?
Absolutely, because with Andy Dalton and Kirk Cousins, both of those quarterbacks in large part are viewed as passengers, not bus drivers. They're viewed as trailers, not tractors. Shedeur Sanders is a tractor.
Gotcha.
Shedeur Sanders is a bus driver. He's nobody's passenger. And that's the part that I think Tim Hasselbeck got it a little bit twisted.
Because we talked about it yesterday with the Giants saying we are going to take the best player available whenever it's our turn to draft. We don't necessarily feel like we have to take a quarterback. And we had the conversation of even though they need to find that guy for the future, if they're doing their evals and they do not think that Shedeur Sanders is going to be that franchise transcendent quarterback that can get them to the playoffs, win playoff games, compete for a championship, then you shouldn't overdraft him there. And when you hear somebody like Tim Hasselbeck saying, oh, it's more of a Kirk Cousins, it's more of an Andy Dalton, that is not worthy of a top 5 pick. Great careers, certainly serviceable quarterbacks can get the job done, but not somebody that you would think could come in and transform your franchise. So to hear you say you think that those comps aren't necessarily accurate and that you think he can be that guy, that's where these teams that are picking are at. Because based on the way that they view him, it seems like there's that spectrum there of some people believe that he can be that guy and some people don't think he's worth that pick.
2 things on this. One, if he's drafted 21st overall, just for argument's sake, if he slips to the Steelers and he has Kirk Cousins' career or Andy Dalton's career, is that a disappointment? If he slips and has that.
With the Pittsburgh Steelers, yes.
Okay. The other thing that I would ask, and this was thrown out to me yesterday, and I thought it was a really interesting thought. Jeremy Marks Peltz, who is in ESPN West Palm, said, what happens if he slips and one of these teams, he said, I hadn't thought about this, that wasn't planning on drafting him, started considering drafting him? What happened to the QB carousel then? And the team he brought up, he's like, what happens if, like, Miami at 13 or Arizona at 16? If Shedeur does actually slip,
Edwards pass.
could we see another wave of the QB carousel here? We saw what happened with Kirk Cousins last year, right? Not happy with the idea of Michael Penix Jr. We saw what Aaron Rodgers happened.
So give me the names of the teams that you threw out.
So let's play out a hypothetical slip for Kirk Cousins. I'm sorry. Oh my God. Shedeur Sanders.
So New Orleans?
New Orleans probably wouldn't have to do anything because Carr is in essence on a 1-year high price deal, right? But maybe New Orleans.
Yeah, I mean, if they drafted Shedeur, they would move off of him, right?
Okay. What happens if he's available at 12?
With Dallas?
What happens if he's available at 13 for Miami? What happens if he's available at 14 for Indy?
You're throwing a lot at me right now.
No, I'm just think about this.
Yeah.
This is a part of this that we haven't actually considered. 16 Arizona. I don't believe he should slip or will slip.
So you're saying will New Orleans move off of their quarterback if Shedeur is at 9? Yes. Will Dallas move off of their quarterback if Shedeur is at 12? No, they can't. It's cost prohibitive, but that doesn't mean that Jerry Jones won't entertain it and have Shedeur as a guy backing up for a year or two before they turn it over to him.
What about Miami?
Miami, yeah.
How do you turn that down if you're Miami? If that man is available at 13?
Because they need somebody that can impact winning this season.
Ooh.
And their best chance at being able to save their jobs is if Tua is their starting quarterback year one.
Okay, what about 14 Indy?
Yeah.
Okay. What about 16 Arizona?
I could see a case be made for that. I could see it.
This is the counter against Rodgers waiting. Because all of a sudden, you know, if a guy like Shedeur gets drafted to Arizona, we're playing the hypothetical he slips game. I'm calling this. If I'm the Steelers, I would rather have Kyler than Rodgers.
Yeah, but that means that there's gonna be a slot that opens up. Somebody that we're projecting needs a quarterback is ultimately not going to get one. And what's their alternative? People are going to turn to Aaron Rodgers. People are going to turn to Kirk Cousins. Those are the top two names on the board in terms of quarterbacks that are gettable.
Here's why this comes up. I agree with you. He's not going to slip because they're not going to look at him as Andy Dalton. But if they do look at him as Andy Dalton, and that's not a bad comp, it's just not a good comp, you don't take Andy Dalton in the top 10 of the draft, probably.
No.
So then what? Maybe he does. I'm just saying, if teams agree with Tim Hasselbeck, maybe Shedeur won't be in the top 10.
Well, I think there will be teams that do agree with Tim Hasselbeck, but as my agent told me, it only takes one. Mm-hmm. It only takes one to fall in love with you. And there are enough traits there for Shedeur. There are enough intangibles there for Shedeur for somebody to fall in love with him.
Absolutely. Absolutely correct. I'm assuming when Jerry Jones drafted you, he knew your agent's name.
Đúng thôi. Giống như cái đoạn mình phim kia nó vài năm nữa thì nó cũng không biết cũng dài.
Mua xóm em là rẻ rách thôi.
Nhưng cái xóm cũ rồi thì nó chả thế.
Từ từ. Chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Ngày hôm nay mình sẽ tiếp tục hướng dẫn các bạn tô tượng. Tượng hôm nay của mình sẽ có tiêu đề là bào ngư. Các bạn hôm nay tượng của mình sẽ có tiêu đề là sứa biển. Bây giờ mình bắt đầu tô nhá. Xóm em giờ chỉ đợi cái muộn con nó lên thôi. Bọn con xóm em nhiều lắm. Còn lâu chúng nó mới phất. $12 năm ngoái ôm cúp không nhé?
Hả?
12 năm ngoái ôm cúp không nhé?
Chị thì quan tâm đâu. Mà ai nhớ nổi.
Nhìn con lợn béo nhà em nó bắt, con lợn anh rể nhà em bắt vô xóm 12 ấy. Nhìn bóng nó đã không lọt được qua rồi. Nhìn cái cục thịt đấy, nhìn bóng nó không lăn được.
Đấy là so với sơ lai. Nhưng mà bên ngoài thì cảm nó đừng đáy nó nhiều.
Béo ục ịch, béo thế.
Đúng không? Nhìn thực tế đây, thế thì so với sơ lai thôi, bên ngoài nhiều cảm nó to lên.
Anh chả nói đâu, anh em ở trên đoạn Phú Linh trên huyện. Trời ơi, hôm lên ăn cỗ bảo là ui cái này đẻ được 3 đứa trong bụng ra, to lắm. Sơn Lai mà một nửa.
Thế mà Sơn Lai vẫn là người bé mà.
Ở đây nhá, đấy màu cam. Con lợn yên đấy, cái năm về đá bóng cho xóm em mà xong bị biết thì sao bị cút.
là anh được cái mà bên tự
Bé thật. Anh có bé không?
người mình thì vẫn so với trong làng thì gọi là cũng gọi là tạo tác, nhưng mà so với bên ngoài vẫn là bé.
Nhùn.
Tại vì so với bên ngoài nó khá là nhiều cao hơn.
Em đi học em toàn thấp hơn chúng nó mà. Một
Sự
đứa
này còn dừng ngắn đang nhiều đấy. Trong được cái người còn lười làm.
anh ra nói con gái à?
Vâng.